Welcome, everyone, to the Mighty Habits Podcast. I'm Stephen, your host. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the heart of the Buddhist teaching. It's a really fascinating book. It looks at mindfulness, happiness, and fundamentally how we deal with suffering. The book suggests a way to, well, transform that suffering into peace, maybe even joy and liberation. So our mission today is to pull out the key ideas, the core insights, so you can get a clear sense of what it's about and, how it might apply to your life.
Yeah, it's a powerful book, and it starts right off with this core idea about suffering, doesn't it? It basically says, look, suffering is part of life. It happens, but it's not something we just have to passively accept. The whole point is that by understanding why we suffer, by really looking at it, we can start to change that experience. It's not about running away from difficulty, but maybe seeing it and ourselves more clearly.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's not just inevitable pain, but something we can work with. What does the book say are the main causes? What actually creates this suffering according to the text? And how does just, understanding these causes help bring about peace? Seems like a big leap.
It does seem like a leap, but the book lays it out quite practically. A big part of it is misunderstanding how things are, specifically their impermanence, the fact that everything changes, and also how interconnected everything is. We tend to grasp onto things, people, ideas, as if they're permanent fixtures.
Right, we want things to stay the same, especially the good things.
Exactly. And because they don't stay the same, because everything is always in flux, that clinging, that resistance to change inevitably leads to disappointment, frustration, suffering. So recognizing this constant flow, this impermanence, and our tendency to attach that's presented as the crucial first step, it allows us to maybe loosen our grip a little.
So it's less about forcing ourselves not to want things and more about acknowledging the reality that everything shifts. And just that acknowledgement starts to ease the suffering.
That's a big part of it, yes. Acceptance of impermanence is key. And the primary tool the book offers for this is mindfulness. Really paying attention to our thoughts as they come and go, our feelings, what's happening around us, but without immediate judgment.
Like being an observer.
Sort of, yeah. Observing the arising and passing away of all these experiences. When you do that consistently, you really start to feel the temporary nature of it all. The pleasant, the unpleasant, the neutral, it all shifts. And that insight naturally dials down that desperate need to hold on or push away.
Okay.
The book uses analogies like watching clouds drift by. You see them, but you don't try to grab them.
I like that. Now, the title also mentions joy and liberation. That sounds, well, pretty aspirational. What do those terms actually mean in this context? Are this like destinations we reach?
Right.
And what are the practical things, the practices the book suggests to cultivate them?
Right. They sound like big goals, but the book presents them more as natural results, consequences of doing the work of transforming suffering. Joy isn't just fleeting happiness. It's described as a deeper kind of contentment, born from that inner peace and understanding we talked about.
Oh, okay.
And liberation means essentially freedom from that cycle of suffering, reactivity, misunderstanding. It's a state of clarity, insight. As for practices, well, mindfulness is central, as we said, but it also details things like mindful breathing, just focusing on the breath, which is incredibly grounding.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
And walking meditation, developing compassion consciously, practicing loving kindness towards ourselves and others. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're techniques to train the mind, become less reactive, and actively build positive states that push back against suffering. Think of mindful breathing like dropping an anchor in the present moment. It gives you that pause.
Okay, so these are concrete actions people can take, not just philosophical concepts. Are there other core ideas or principles in the book that offer really practical day-to-day guidance?
Oh, absolutely. One really fundamental concept is what Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. It's this idea that nothing exists independently, everything is connected to and depends on everything else.
Interbeing, like interconnectedness.
Exactly. Think about a simple piece of paper. It contains the sunshine, the rain, the forest, the logger, the factory worker, their parents. You see?
Wow, yeah, when you put it like that.
Understanding this, really feeling it, helps dissolve that sense of separation. It naturally fosters empathy, compassion, because you realize your well-being is tied up with everyone and everything else's.
That's quite profound.
It is.
Yeah.
And then there's the principle of the middle way, which is basically about avoiding extremes, not falling into harsh asceticism on one hand or mindless indulgence on the other, finding balance.
Moderation.
Yes, in thoughts, actions, lifestyle. The book also stresses ethical living, mindful speech, right livelihood, actions that don't cause harm. These aren't separate from mindfulness. They're part of cultivating that awareness and reducing suffering for oneself and others.
There's clearly a lot in this book. If you had to pick one insight, though,
Hmm.
something that could offer someone, maybe someone struggling right now, an immediate shift in perspective, something that might just click.
Hmm. That's a tough one because it's also interwoven. But if I had to pick one, maybe it's the understanding that suffering largely arises from our reaction to events, not just the events themselves.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, difficult things happen, that's unavoidable, pain happens. But the suffering, the rumination, the anger, the despair, the why me, often comes from how we internally respond, how we cling to certain outcomes or resist what is. Realizing this doesn't magically stop difficult things from happening, of course,
Right.
but it shifts the power dynamic. It
Yeah.
means we're not just helpless victims of circumstance. We actually have some agency in how much we suffer based on how we choose to respond internally.
So the power is in the response.
Yes. Cultivating awareness of those automatic reactions, the anger, the fear, the craving, and learning to meet them with a bit more wisdom, a bit more compassion, rather than just fueling them, that can make an immediate difference. It's like realizing you have control over the volume knob inside your own head. You can learn to turn down the intensity of the suffering. That realization itself can be incredibly freeing.
That's a really powerful takeaway. The idea that our internal response is where the leverage lies. So we've touched on some really key teachings from the heart of the Buddhist teaching today, looking at suffering, understanding its roots in things like impermanence and clinging, and exploring how practices like mindfulness and concepts like interbeing can lead towards, well, peace, joy, and that sense of liberation.
It offers a whole framework.
It really does. A framework for understanding why we struggle and how to cultivate a more aware, maybe more fulfilling way of being. And like you said, the book itself goes much deeper with lots more practical advice. Perhaps for listeners, just considering that idea we finished on the power of our own reaction, or maybe the idea of inner being might be a starting point. Just reflecting on how those concepts play out in your own experience could perhaps open up new pathways toward a greater sense of peace.